we're going to talk about your old club, Essendon. Ugh, I'm just going to play, before we get into your thoughts, I'm just going to play this audio. This is Brad Scott after the game.
We can't have selfishness, players who think about themselves. And we've done a lot of work to make sure we don't have that. But when things are really hard and you get demoralised, human nature is to think about yourself and what does this mean for me? Yeah, I think at one stage we thought if you handball at 10 metres, it's to mark. So, yeah, but again, I can list off a dozen things that we've got to work on, but I'll be leaving out the other dozen.
But is it human nature to be selfish? And you often talk to me about culture and individual players and their performance and the way that they behave. So what's your response to that interview there?
There's nothing worse than when you're in those situations, and I've been part of some poor teams where we haven't won a lot, and you're sitting in the lecture theatre and you're watching clips of yourself and the team, and you're sort of sliding down your chair because you're cringing at what you're seeing. But you need to all be on the same page. Like, you need the coach to realise that. Ask the players, why are you playing the way you are? Like, are you confused? And they need that. That's what they need this week. I spoke about it last week. I thought there was confusion. I said they're either lazy or they're confused and they're losing their confidence, not knowing what the coach wants from them. And I think that it starts with that. They're not unfit. Like, they've just done a big pre-season. Yes, they're younger and some of them aren't as talented as the better sides are, but I think they are a group of players that seem to be confused about what the coach wants from them.
So you're using the word confused, therefore has the coach got the problem here?
Oh, he's got a major problem, yes.
In the way he coaches?
In the way that his players in the first few rounds cannot stop ball movement and cannot stop the way Hawthorn are now a lesser side in Port Adelaide have just opened them up straight away. So, I think they need to have it. The senior players need to sit in a room with the coach and talk about what is going on. They're not as bad as they are showing. Then there's no team, I think, that is that poor. West Coast Eagles showed yesterday what intent can do when you want it, and the Bombers aren't showing that intent either, Jackie. So, yes, they've got a lot to work through, but I don't think they're as bad as what they're putting out.
Is Brad Scott the right person to coach the club?
I hoped he would have been, but he's coaching for his future. Right now, you'd have to say that he's up against it to be probably still in the chair as time goes by. I think he'll have this whole season, but he'd want to improve a lot to be coaching this time next year.
So what's the first thing you would do if you were him?
If I was him, well, again, just you can't be sensitive. You can't make it a player v coach thing. You need to sit down and get players to honestly talk to you around why they're playing this way, why there was no effort in the first quarter. It looked like no effort, but is it a lack of confidence, belief, confusion? And at the end of the day, I think the coach is the most, some will say it's your core senior players and your senior coach are the guys that drive the standards and are the most important to your fortunes. It's not the young blokes. It's a lot of young players, but they're looking for direction from the senior coach and your core senior players, and they don't seem to be on the same page.
So how would you describe the standard at Essendon?
Well, they don't. They're not, Jackie, a leader in anything. So I'm not sure what they stand for in terms of anything. So in terms of their football, like this, it's hard to describe what they're trying to do. In terms of they're not moving the ball that well, they're not defending very well. Development, apart from probably Caddy, it's hard to name anybody who you can say, okay, he's going to be a young, like West Coast, there was 4 of them yesterday that you walk away going, I'm pretty excited about what I just saw from those 4. But the young Essendon players aren't developing like you'd hope they'd develop. But again, I put that back down to, are they in a poor environment which isn't allowing you to thrive at Essendon?
We've had this same discussion for you and I personally, but you for years and years now, everywhere when you do your media. It's like every year you get put in the same position as an Essendon great to make a comment about your former club, and every year it's actually the same.
It is, and that's what I was on a show this morning on AFL Media, and Damo seems you said you seem a bit down. I said, yeah, because I don't like being the spokesman for Essendon and talking negatively about them. I cry out for the day that I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying, how good was that? How good is it? They look like a top 4 team. They are good enough to play in a grand final, and I feel for the Essendon supporters because every year the hope's up and they fill stands, and then the hope is dashed in this season within 2 rounds of football.
Are you sick of it?
Oh, absolutely. I am sick of it. But again, I love the game and I love turning up and watching, say, the Suns get their act together or the Western Bulldogs, Luke Beveridge has been seen, has his time passed, but then they're playing probably the best football in the competition. So you always have that hope, but there's not much to hang your hat on right now if you're an Essendon supporter.
And are you confident Brad Scott will be there at the end of the season? Like, do you think now it's getting to the point where he may not stay the course for the year?
Well, I think there's support. Like Andrew Welsh is massive on stability, and I think it would take a lot for them to move on from Brad Scott within the season. But if they kept playing the way they have played the first 2 rounds, the pressure is going to be extreme for him to see out the rest of this season.
Your questions for Lloydie, Essendon supporters, jump on the line now. I do have a message from Damien. He says, I'm a die-hard suffering Essendon lad and I grew up with your number on my back, Lloydie. I keep seeing on social media the boys are always at gatherings or events. They've got alcohol. Do you think it's time for some off-field discipline and some heart to get back into a fighting spirit? Because us fans and members are exhausted.
I can't speak for whether they work harder or not as hard as other teams, and I'm sure some of the best players in the game will get out and have a beer and a weekend. Sometimes you just need to wind down and have a break, and you can't be... My problem, I retired early because I was 24/7 football, and by the end of it, after 15 years, I was still physically okay, but mentally I'd had enough because I was 24/7 football. So I've got no issues. Social media now, players... It's their way of making extra income and things like that. So I can only judge what happens on the field. And yes, they've got a long, long way to go and they need to improve rapidly. But I put it on the leaders in terms of the coaching staff, the administration and the core senior players.
Neville, are you an Essendon fan?
No, I'm not. But my late son is, and he'd be proud of me for ringing. Him and I many times discussed that the game plan is too complicated for the young fellas these days. Like, I don't know whether someone's game enough to go back to the old style game at the moment to work them up to it, but they're getting so frustrated because it's not happening.
Neville, it's interesting you say that because just in the Brad break we were talking about coaches and what makes a great coach, right?
Yeah, and there's so many different ways of doing it. And I look at the 2-time premiership coach, Chris Fagan, and I think he's one of the better people person that you'll ever meet in the game. He's just amazing in his ability probably you only play for 2 hours, but you're together with your players for 30 hours and they just love him and adore him and he can have the strong conversation, but they respect him so much that they love him for it. Whereas some players don't have great relationships with their coach and then that goes against the coach because you have to be able to communicate with so many people. You can only pick 22 out of a list of 40, so there's 18 who don't get games. So how are you communicating with them? How do they feel about you? So you can have the best strategy in the world, but unless you're a great communicator, I think communication is the first thing that gets a coach going if they aren't great communicators with their players.
Ian says, afternoon, Matthew. If not Brad Scott, who else would coach Essendon? I don't think a lot would be throwing their hat in the ring.
People always throw their hat in the ring. So you've got, I look at premiership coaches. So Chris Fagan was just head of football with Clarkson. He became a head coach. Craig McRae was in the system for 20 years. And he was under a good, I think he was at Hawthorn and then he was under Hardwick at Richmond. Damien Hardwick toiled away. So they're
Are there any current sort of second level ones that you would see as future head coaches?
Yeah, I can't say guys who've been in the system for ages. This guy Hayden Skipworth, who's been at Collingwood for a long time. Daniel G in Syracuse has been in the system for a long time. So they're Ash Hanson's at Carlton. So there's a lot of them, and that's what you do. You just go through the interview process. I'm sure Adam Simpson and John Longmire, I think they would like to get back into coaching. Nathan Buckley would like to get in. So I think you put all of those in the pot if Brad's not to be the man, and whether you're a first time or you're experienced, you just pick the best coach available for what your club needs.
Imagine Bucks at the hangar.
Yeah. I think he'll be coaching Tassie.
Yeah, I think he will be too. I think that deal's done. Lloydie, the Zach Merrett trade issue still lingers amongst the players, yet the club offers to sign further. That's destroyed the playing group. What's your thoughts on that? Well,
he wanted to go. The club decided they wanted to keep their best player and didn't feel they were getting full value. He's still trying his best, but it may be that, at the end of the year, they both come to an agreement that they did their best, but part ways potentially at the end of the year, but who knows? Yeah.
Now, just before I let you go, I've got to ask you about the taunting thing and your views. Tony Shaw described it on Sunday Footy as a woke decision.
I don't mind the decision. I think we've gone past what Voss did to Petty, where he's rubbing. I don't know if it's Petty's got a bald spot.
Yes.
He's rubbing the bald spot, then he's rubbing in
magic
his eyes.
lamp.
And yeah, so I'm sure in the past and when I first started, you do, and everyone would say that's fine. But I think we've gone past all that, the taunting of it. It was a poor look. His club wouldn't have been that happy with it. The AFL wasn't happy with it. He gets a fine.
You happy with the fine?
I think so. I think he would be embarrassed himself. The club would have pulled him into line. So I think we're getting towards that line of you just don't go down that track in the modern game.
I have an older brother, Kevin, who barracks passionately for the Bombers. So I've always kept a close eye on Essendon, chosen not to have supported that club, but I don't think they've been at a lower ebb in my lifetime. And I say that they do have injuries. I mean, every club has injuries, but they can't afford to have any injuries. And blokes like Nick Martin's out for the year with a knee, which was a total disaster. Ridley, that kid Angus Clark, who looked really good last year in the second half of the season. Nick Bryan will come back into the ruck. But, crikey, yes, it doesn't explain lack of effort. And effort sometimes cannot just be seen to be trying. And you don't want to individualise because there was a collective yesterday, and even Zach Merrett didn't play well. He must be thinking, what in the hell am I doing here? Honestly, he must. How many of their players would get games in top 4 clubs? Well, say we use the Western Bulldogs or Gold Coast.
Zach Merrett.
Confidently, Zach Merrett.
Yep.
And I honestly couldn't confidently say someone else. No, Caddy's a really promising young forward. He kicked 4 yesterday. So he would be on the books. He'd play with most sides, if not all. Up the other end, you got Big Ben Mackay. Now, Ben's went there as unrestricted free agent on, I think it's a 6-year deal from North Melbourne for $850,000 or thereabouts. Yesterday he had 3 kicks, 3 handballs. He's playing in a central defensive position. That ain't enough.
Yeah.
It just ain't enough. No tackles, 2 marks. Yeah, okay, if you can't play like Glenn Jakovic, at least look like you're really trying to be Glenn Jakovic.
I stopped and replayed the moment from yesterday's game to my son. We were watching because he didn't know. A Port Adelaide player took a mark and ran into an open goal. The Essendon player on him didn't chase him. Oh.
I'd ask if some of those Essendon players aren't a bit happy with themselves if they think, well, we're playing league footy, we're pretty good.
Yeah, well,
I don't know them individually. I have heard people say different things. The only one I've ever really met is Will Setterfield, who's certainly not like that. He's injured at the moment too. Delightful young bloke. But Brett Scott had his contract extended last year during the season. It would have been, I think David Barham was the president then. Andrew Welsh has since taken over. It's a very big test for Andrew Welsh in his infancy as a president. What does he do with Brad? So don't worry about the contract running out next year. There'd be KPIs and whatever involved in that. They play North Melbourne this weekend. A 10-goal loss to North Melbourne, and that's where they're at. They're losing games by 10 or 12 goals. That's going to happen a lot this year. I don't like coaches being sacked during the year. I do not. I've never seen the point in it. Honestly, I haven't. Yeah. You could argue that it has happened where they've then taken a side up and stayed on. Paul Roos is a good example of it. But right now, I wouldn't be doing that. But Essendon, I'm not close to it. I'm not involved. I'm not in the 4 walls at Essendon to see how Brad's going. If he loses the players, that's a whole different ballgame.
That's right.
And I don't know whether the players would have any rights to be saying who should be their coach based on what I've seen this year.